Okay, welcome back to session 2. Now for today's class on Friday, for session 2, we're going to be looking at writing Bright 1. Okay, so for writing Bright 1 today, our today's lesson again, it's going to be tips, 9 excellent tips for creative writing. I know you've done it before in a few classes ago, but just a quick reminder on how to write a good creative writing, okay? Right, but before we go there, let's do a quick lesson review on what we've done so far. Do you remember in our Writing Bright 1 what we've done so far? So yeah, in our Writing Bright 1 so far, we were doing something of adverbs of frequency. Do you remember what is adverbs of frequency? That's right. Okay, good. So adverb of frequency means it's describe how often an action happens, and there are 6 main verbs of frequency that we use in English, right? We use always, usually, or normally. Okay, we use often, sometimes, rarely, and never. And we also looked at the differ in the level of frequency chart as well, with the percentage, right? So with 100%, always, usually comes with 80%, often comes with 70%, sometimes 50%, rarely 20%, and never 0%. Okay, so I'm not going to go too far on reviewing because you've already done it so far. Okay, all right. So for today's class, we're going to be looking at 9 excellent tips for creative writing. What does creative writing? So creative writing, when I ask you to write some story writing or mostly basically it's about writing skills, how to get a good writing skills, okay? All right, let's move on to tip 1. Write about what you know, okay? So basically beginning writers always get told write about what you know. But it is a good advice actually. So what you need to understand is you need to understand that when it comes to writing, you need settings, you need characters, you need background, you need language. Okay, it's very important. And that you're already familiar with and create new stories from the world that you already know. Okay? So if I was to ask you choose a story writing, so maybe you can write about the princess and the frog. So you need to understand what's the background going to be like, okay? What your writing is going to be. Okay, so using the setting, the characters, the background, and the language as well. So it's very, very important that you need to know what you're writing, okay? Very important. Tip number 2, use your imagination. So what you need, tip number 2 is write about what you don't know. So at this point, you can use your imagination to create new situations, new characters, new relationship, even new worlds, okay? So choose to write about different period in history or place that you're not familiar with, where imagination helps fill in the gaps with research. The best thing about being creative is writer is creating. So creative writer usually, when they don't know about something, they sit and imagine what the place is going to be like, okay? So if you were to write a story about a fairy tale story or something, you sit there and you try to imagine what kind of fairy tale story would I like to write about, okay? So it could be, there's going to be a castle, forest with lots of butterflies and birds, okay? But you kind of got stuck with that because you're not sure of that place. Then at that point, you can do a quick research about what you're trying to write. All right, so use your imagination, use your thinking skills. Okay? Tip number 3, read widely and well. So writers love reading. Make yourself familiar with the published landscape of your writing in your chosen field, whether it is modern poetry, literary, fiction, thrillers, short stories, or fantasy. Nothing encourages good writing like reading good writing, okay? So after you write a short story of whatever you've written about, you need to make yourself familiar, okay? You need to reread again, okay? So you need to make sure that you've chosen the field, okay? You need to make sure if the story is either fiction, is it a scary story, is it a short story, is it a fantasy story like princess stories, okay? So you need to make sure that you need to understand what you are writing, and when the person reading it, they know exactly, oh, okay, so he or she is writing about fantasy. He or she is writing about a scary story. He or she is writing about a day at the beach, okay, or short stories, okay, right? So it's important to read it widely after writing your stories, writing it, okay? Tips number 4. Okay, so tip number 4, hook your readers. What does it mean, hook your readers? Okay, so we're not forced to let the readers read your book or a short novel, but it is very important to hook the readers right away. So your opening paragraph or sentence should encourage them to continue, perhaps by making them laugh or exciting their curiosity, or just make them want to find out what happened next. So at the beginning of the story, at the beginning of your writing, you should make the reader wants to read on. And the moment they look at the first paragraph, they go, this is very interesting. I'm going to read it, okay? So if you're going to start with a boring sentence at the beginning of the sentence, no one is going to read this story, okay? So no one's going to even start reading it. The moment they read the first sentence and it goes, my brother died, or something like, I lost my pony, okay? That's not how the beginning of the sentence works, okay? Right? Good. So it's very, very important that you need to have a proper beginning, okay? That you would want to make your readers want to read on, want to get excited, okay? So maybe the first beginning of the few paragraphs, could be something funny or something exciting or something like, ooh, it's curious. You want them to read what happened next, okay? Tips number 5. Get your characters talking. All right. We'll find out about people we meet through what they say to us, how they say it, their choice of words, their accents, their verbal habits. Readers should be able to do the same with fictional characters. People on the same page really start to live when they start exchanging dialogue, okay? So when you're writing it, you need to get your readers to read your book. And then you need them to talk about your books as well. You need to let them talk about your stories as well. So what you need to do, you need to choose choices of words, okay? So example, if you're writing a story about something, about your a day trip with your family, make sure that each person in that story is talking as well, okay? It's important that they're talking as well. So when the person is reading your story, they actually get into that character. So for example, we went to the beach with my mom. Suddenly my mom told me, hey, kiddo, you can't do this. So then the reader, when they're reading that part, they can actually go along with what you've written, okay? So that's also another interesting part when it comes to writing, your creative writing. All right. Tips number 6, shows rather than tell. Don't try and write too much description or too many adjectives and verbs. It mostly can slow up your narrative and cause your readers to lose interest, okay? So it's better to show readers what a person or the atmosphere in the room, the relationship between your character is like. Show that is by what they say, how they interact, what they do. It's more effective than telling the readers through words piles of information. So what it is that when it comes to writing, creative writing, you do not need so much description, okay? Like it says, no need of having too many adjectives and verbs, okay? Because otherwise you can slow up your readers, okay? Then it becomes boring, because if you're just writing a sentence describing, it's going to be slowing your readers, okay? Then they become bored of your writing, of reading your writing, then they don't want to read it anymore, okay? So you can talk, you show your readers more by writing it and looking at what they say, how they interact, and what they do. That is more effective than telling the readers through words, so many descriptive words. So we don't need too many descriptive words, like boring, same, short words, okay? Tips number 7, get it right first time. So try to get your first draft as near perfect as possible. Few writers manage this kind of quality the first time, but no one ever wrote great literature by aiming low, okay? So before you start writing, you should draft it. So on a different piece of paper, you can write some notes down on what you want to include in your story, okay? So it's very, very important. If you get it draft perfect the first time, then your story is going to be better when you start writing the actual one, okay? So it's going to be perfect. So it's easy, so remember to draft it, okay? Tips number 8. Well, if you don't get it right the first time, you can do it again. That doesn't matter. Writers never makes it perfect through the first time, so it takes time to editing it, okay? Then you also need the same proofreading it as well, so someone else can read it. It's much more about correcting errors rather than editing involves carefully going through your work to see what you leave out, what to change, finding out what you have to do to improve your writing. It is sharper, tighter, and better. Okay, so it's important, even if you don't get it the first time right, you can do what mostly other people do, is you make it perfect through editing it. Okay, so you can go back and edit the words, edit the sentence, edit the paragraphs, edit everything to make it perfect. All right. Tips number 9, make the most of your opportunities. So many aspiring, after you write it, you simply don't have the time to make most of their ideas, okay? So it is important, there are always those intervals using public transport, waiting for friends, time spent in the waiting room, doctor, dentist, when it's possible to pull out a writing pad, a tablet, a laptop, and just write, okay? So you identify your opportunities. 5 minutes is enough to get a few sentences down and use them. So if you want to become a perfect creative writing person, anywhere, you can write anywhere. You have great opportunity. Even if you're at a bus stop waiting for a bus for 5 minutes, even if you're in a restaurant, you're waiting for your food, you can just take out your tablets, you can take out your laptop, or your phone pad or something, and you can start writing. Okay, so it's important. So even if you're waiting for a friend, you spend time in the waiting room of a doctor, you go to, you can write anywhere. So opportunities for writers are everywhere, anytime, if you want to. Okay, so make the most of it. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, that will be a perfect timing as well, right? Okay, well that's all. I'm not going to go too long, and you may take some time to read all of this again to yourselves, okay? Alright, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me, to talk to me, to ask more questions about it, okay? It's very important. Now, especially for all of you who are in higher levels, okay? Especially starting from level 7 to level 12, you're going to start having to write in English a creative writing piece. So this will help. Okay, try to watch the video very carefully, and if you don't understand, you can watch it again, or if you don't understand, you can ask me anytime. Okay, so it's very, very important. Sooner or later, as you go, as I said before, when you go to high levels, you're gonna have to do creative writing. Sorry, that's how English goes. Okay, all right. Thank you everyone for participating in our online learning program. Please don't forget to do your homework and classwork. And goodbye all. And